A hostile weather pattern continues to bring round after round of severe weather, flash flooding, and scorching heat for some areas of the United States. The tropics have gone back to sleep, but the sun is waking up. So, what does all of that mean for you where you are? Well, I'm going to break it all down for you in today's video. We're going to start by taking a look at the severe weather threat over the next couple of days, where some areas are going to pick up large hail damaging winds, potentially even tornadoes. And then we are going to get into a look at the rest of the week and see where the hot weather is, where it's going, who might cool off. And we'll take a look at the long range and see what the pattern looks like and how it continues to evolve as we get on through the month of July. This is Cold Rain's Weather World. You're here for a new episode, and we've got all the weather, and it starts right now. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another edition of Cold Rain's Weather World, where we've got all the weather. We don't just cover the main weather event of the day. We cover all of it to give you a comprehensive view so that you understand how the weather might impact you where you are. And that's why you tune in here and hopefully subscribed. If you're not yet subscribed, we're getting close to 1,000. Please consider hitting the subscribe button down below. I know you want to. Just click it and turn on those notifications by clicking the bell icon too. I put these videos out about every day, and you'll get notified when I do so. And hit the thumbs up icon. Let me know if there's anything I can pray over for you in the comments section. I'm happy to pray over anything specific going on in your life. And I pray for you generally every day. So please pray for me as well. We all need that, folks. So share the content if you know people that like this stuff. We cover a lot of stuff here, and we're going to start today by covering severe weather. And if it seems like we've been talking about it a lot, we have been. Look at this. This map from the SPC page, Storm Prediction Center. I showed this yesterday, but it shows all of the severe weather events recorded so far, and there have been a ton of them, about 17,000 or so. And you might ask, well, how does that stack up historically? Is it relatable historically? Well, we're actually, from 2010 to date, we're running in second place when it comes to tornadoes. We're 600 behind 2011, which was the most active season, at 1913 in terms of their tornado count, July the 6th. Year to date through July the 6th, we're at 1319 there. Hail, we're about middle of the pack here, running toward the median, and then wind is also in second place with just under 12,000. 2011 had just over 16,000 wind reports. So we're running pretty high in terms of severe weather. That's why we've been talking about it so much. And you can find this map right on the Storm Prediction Center's page and all of that. We're going to add to those totals today, folks. So it's going to be another stormy day and another stormy week ahead. Satellite picture shows little impulses moving through the Great Lakes and middle Mississippi River Valley, stalled frontal boundary up through from there up to the New England area. And we see some thunderstorms underneath some of these clouds already, a little fog up here in the North Dakota and Minnesota, some more clouds down in Texas. You guys are drying out down there a little bit. Looking at the alerts map here, you can kind of see that very well. Not much going on in terms of flood watch is up for Texas. Thank goodness. Flood watch is up, though, for the middle Atlantic, where we're going to see high precipitable water values make efficient thunderstorm and rain production. Thunderstorms are going to produce 2, maybe even 3-inch per hour rainfall rates up here. Heat advisory is going to be thick out there, folks. Hot temperatures and, a lot of humidity around. And we're going to see dew points or heat index values creep up near 105 in spots out here. Very hot in the desert Southwest, approaching 115, maybe even 120 degrees in spots. Extreme heat warnings up, heat advisories up in eastern Montana for temperatures approaching 100, and red flag warnings up and down the western seaboard with windy conditions, dry conditions, and it's very hot out there, so please don't burn anything. Slight risk of severe weather is kind of focused here in the mid-Atlantic. That is our highest level for threat level today, and it is predominantly for precipitation-loaded microbursts as these thunderstorms form. Very, very high water content in the atmosphere. They'll form into clusters and release a lot of rain rapidly that will push wind down to the surface, spread it out, and you'll get big wind gusts at the surface, and you could see isolated severe thunderstorms anywhere from Columbia, South Carolina up to Boston, Massachusetts. And then over here in the mid-Mississippi Valley, back through the southern plains up the front range of the Rockies, could see a little bit more in the way of hail as lapse rates are a little bit better out there, steepening of temperature decreasing with height. Wind certainly is a threat. Tornadoes not much of a threat. Tomorrow, Not a lot going on in terms of severe weather, organized severe weather. It looks like at this point, you can see a few thunderstorms develop up here in the Dakotas and produce wind and hail as well up there. And then off to the mid-Atlantic down into the southeast, we could see more precipitation-loaded microbursts being the primary threat with wind here. There are some models that show a little bit of an organized complex developing out of South Dakota moving into Iowa. If that happens, then we could see a little bit more of in the way of an upgrade here for a higher level of severe weather risk tomorrow is what I'm saying. We'll certainly see an upgrade as we move on through the week, and we'll look at that in the weekday planner here in a minute. This is precipitable water, and this shows you where the moisture is integrated through the entirety of the atmosphere. These reds and yellows are very high. Reds are extreme, and you can see that through the mid-Atlantic today. And as we go on through the afternoon here in the southern Mississippi Valley into the southeast tomorrow, look at these values just explode. It means it's going to be hot and humid, cloudy at times, but also when you have thunderstorms as we go through the week, those areas just sort of sit there. You have thunderstorms that are very efficient in terms of the rainfall production. Got a big area of high pressure out here in the Atlantic, just pumping in moisture up from the Gulf of cold rain, and you can see that moisture funneling all the way up into Canada. So very, very moisture-laden atmosphere. Thunderstorms are going to form and have plenty of juice to work with, and so we'll see some localized flooding as well, and that just persists throughout the week and even returns into the plains too. Looking at the radar and how everything will unfold as we get on in toward mid-afternoon, maybe 1, 2 o'clock, something like that East Coast time, we see thunderstorms firing in Pennsylvania through the southeast back into South Texas near Austin and San Antonio, where we've seen plenty of rain out there, southern Louisiana. Things just sort of fire up around the country as little boundaries act as the focus at the low levels. A little bit more organized area of thunderstorms up here in the mid-Atlantic where the slight risk is. Going to see some wind damage out of those. A few storms firing up here along the front range of the Rockies. A few of those could be severe too with wind and hail. Things kind of die out, quiet down tonight. We wash, rinse, repeat tomorrow afternoon. We get into the late afternoon hours. Plenty of thunderstorms up and down the southeast sections of the country into the Great Lakes too, southern tier of the country up in the front range of the Rockies. And notice what happens here in North and South Dakota. Just a few sporadic thunderstorms pop up. So even though we've got big instability up there, we're not seeing a lot to really organize those thunderstorms, but we do see this little complex trying to form and move into Iowa. A couple other models show that. And if we see that continue, that could enhance the wind threat. We may see a slight risk issued for those areas, and that'll move on off as we get into the overnight hours Thursday or Wednesday night into Thursday morning. And that's your severe weather threat. We're going to take a look at the weather IQ question of the day, again about the moon. It's a slam dunk easy one, so I hope you're ready for it. All right, today's question is a slam dunk. This is a gimme, folks. If you've paid attention to this show at all, particularly over the last 24 hours, you will know the answer to this question, and here it comes. The first full moon in July is called what? The water moon, the bow moon, the supermoon, or the buck moon. All right. If you know the answer, type it in the comments. Hopefully all of you will get it right. If you don't know it, that's okay. Maybe you missed the show yesterday, but if you don't know it, just wait till the end of the show. I will reveal it to you. Then you can go and tell everybody that you know, hey, come watch Cold Rain's Weather World. We learn all kind of cool stuff on that show. So I'll reveal it at the end of the show. Stay tuned. The weekday planner is next. What better way to kick off the rest of your work week forecast than by showing the air quality map? I know some of you have sensitivity to particulates and things like that, so I want to show this every day. You won't get this on other shows, but we have all the weather here, including air quality, and for the most part, air quality is pretty good. Just where the yellow is, not too bad, but when you get into this orange and some reds, particularly around Los Angeles, you'll start to see much more in the way of air quality issues if you have those kinds of sensitivities. So Fresno, Los Angeles, Salt Lake City, New York City, that's where we're finding air quality issues today, so just be aware of that if you're out and about. Windy conditions over the west, that's where we have those red flag warnings. Winds could gust into the 30s, maybe approaching 40 in spots from central Washington through Oregon, Northern California, Eastern California, much of Nevada, and then back in here into the Bitterroots and back into the Rocky Mountains. You'll see some gusty winds, northern Texas as well, and a few gusts along the East Coast. Not too bad, though. It'll be mostly outside of thunderstorms, not too breezy of a day, so that's good. Get outside and do some things without having everything kind of fly around in your face. But as we go on through the week, though, look at the pattern here, folks. We show this map from time to time. This is the mid-level winds. It gives you an idea where troughs are in the mid-levels and where the wind energy is and things like that. And we start out here on Tuesday. big anticyclone, big high pressure dome sitting out here in the western United States. We've seen this just kind of set up over the last couple of days. High pressure out here in the Atlantic, again, just pumping moisture, and you can see those streamlines coming right out of the Gulf of Cold Rain there. So those are two main features. And then we've got a trough kind of working in through the mid-Mississippi Valley. You can see that here with the kink in the lines that's moving to the east. That's going to provide a focus for showers and thunderstorms throughout the day over here in the east. More energy working into the west coast. Now watch this as we put this on into motion, come through the week, get in here tomorrow morning. Early in the morning hours tomorrow, there's that trough kind of continuing to hang through the Mississippi Valley, new energy working into California. And as that works on in tomorrow afternoon, we see not a lot going on in the center part of the country. That's why it's very difficult to upgrade this area to a severe risk tomorrow, because there's just not a lot going on here. Winds out of the northwest. But again, if we start to see a little disturbance form, it'll ride along those, ride along the edge of that periphery of that ridge, move into Iowa, potentially creating some wind damage. Again, general troughing here. You can see the streamlines like this, the height contours. That's general troughing. Here comes another trough in. Ahead of troughs and along troughs is where you find unsettled weather, and you have a moist, unstable air mass that can lead to severe weather. Trough in the east as we move on into Thursday, and as we get on in toward basically Wednesday evening, Wednesday night into Thursday morning, here comes another trough working in here into the Central Plains. That's going to take a bit of a negative tilt as we go on out, and it gets absorbed into this bigger trough coming in out of Canada. And as it does so, it's really going to increase the lift back in these areas here. So we may see an upgrade. We've already got a slight risk out for Thursday. We may see an upgrade to that as we get on out in time with extra lift there and dynamics at play. And as we get on out through the end of the week, Friday morning, got another trough coming in Canada that will absorb this trough eventually down here working through the plains. But we're going to see plenty of severe weather opportunities in this area here as we go on through the week. So I would pay close attention if I lived up in here as we get on into the week for severe weather, and maybe upgrades to that Friday afternoon. There it comes, and it'll eventually merge as we get on the weekend into one big trough. This ridge kind of migrates back to the west, and it'll oscillate back and forth, and that'll be important because that means heat and hot conditions out west just under the center of that ridge, and then as it moves back in, it'll keep that general trough in place in the east. And so here are the temperature forecasts we go through the week. Today, looking at a pretty pleasant day in New England up through the Great Lakes area into the eastern northern plains. Very, very hot in Montana where those heat advisories are. Hundreds back here towards Spokane in eastern Washington state, back through the Intermountain West, down to the desert southwest. Hundreds, mid-90s in the plains, mid-90s in the southeast. Going to feel very, very hot and nasty over much of the country. As we get on into tomorrow, the regime does not change all that much. Still kind of pleasant up in the Great Lakes to New England, but hot 90s, backs off a little bit in the southeast, but the plains are baking. You guys are cooking out here, folks. Hundreds all the way up to the Canadian border, approaching 120 in Death Valley, Phoenix 116. San Joaquin Valley in the 90s, backing off a little bit up here in Seattle or up in Seattle over to Spokane as the new trough works in up there. We get on into Thursday, starting to feel a little bit of relief up here in the northwest quadrant of the country. Still hot in the desert southwest, 90s up to the Canadian border in the Central Plains, near 100 here in the southern Central Plains, and back over to the nation's midsection, looking at 80s and 90s. Still pleasant up in New England. Look at that, 70s, maybe some showers around with the trough up there. And then really cooling down as a new trough starts to work in. It will bring some severe weather to the Central Plains as we get into toward Friday, and then up into the Great Lakes back to south central United States. We're looking at temperatures from the 80s back to the mid 90s again. Still hot in the San Joaquin Valley, desert southwest, and 90s from essentially Virginia southward into Florida. That's your temperature regime as we go through the week. Looking at the precipitation pattern, we already kind of looked at today and tomorrow. We start here Thursday, or this is Wednesday evening. There's a little cluster of thunderstorms. See the Europeans showing that too. We looked at that on the rapid refresh a while ago. As we get on out through the night Thursday, that'll die off Wednesday night. And then Thursday morning, we're looking at thunderstorms again firing along and east of that trough, up and down the eastern seaboard. Not so much activity in the plains until we get way into the afternoon. Then we start to see Thursday evening, a cluster of showers and storms up here in the northern plains. So we really could see a severe weather event kind of unfold, a wind event maybe, as we get on into Thursday evening and afternoon. We're going to watch that through the course of the week. And then we get back into Friday afternoon. We start to see the same thing, just a little bit farther east, still showers and thunderstorms on a scattered basis through the southeast. And as we get on in toward Saturday night, or Friday night rather, you can see the remnants of some of these systems working in through the night. So that's your work week forecast. Hope that helps you plan up things. Now we're going to take a look at the long range and finish up with our space weather and geological update. No need to go too hog wild detailed with the long range. Pretty simple pattern here, folks. We've got a dominant ridge, a pattern out here in the west with a trough center portion of the country to the east, and that will continue. So if we watch this, you can tell by these close contours and the big ridge out here off the west coast. This is as we get into the weekend and early next week, by the way, ridging up here in the northeast and southeast Canada, and then general weakness in the between the ridges here in the center portion of the country, which is where you'd find the cooler weather, and then to the along and to the east of that, the unsettled weather. As we're going out through next week, we start to see a little bit more of a zonal flow. This ridge broadens out in the southwest, and eventually it will work back in as we go through time. Broad trough in the center portion of the country again in east, northeast. You're going to be hot, and the desert southwest is going to continue to be hot under ridging out there. And we're going out toward July the 20th. We start to get an idea of what the end of July might be like. It's much the same. Ridging out west, troughing in the east, and that's where you would find hot weather out west and maybe unsettled weather in the center portion of the country toward the east. And certainly if we look at the precipitation pattern over that time frame, basically from this coming weekend on out, look at this. You can see where the precipitation footprint is and which areas accumulate the most rain over the duration of the run. And this takes us all the way out to basically July the 23rd. Okay, so Wednesday morning, July the 23rd. Big area of rain through the central plains and the Midwest down into the southeast, and this is where the bulk of the rain looks to be over that time period. As a matter of fact, the 6 to 10 day forecast from the Climate Prediction Center shows signal for above normal precipitation along the East Coast and moderately above for the rest of the nation, with the exception of the West, where it's going to be dry. And we saw that below to near normal, maybe slightly above in Alaska and above for Hawaii. Temperature profile, very, very, very warm out west, and warm. This is for the period, again, remember, the 13th through the 17th of July. So we're getting way on out into the middle portion of July now. We're starting to get toward the end, and I looked at the 8 to 14 day maps too, by the way, and they show a very, very similar pattern here. And of course they should, with the pattern that we just looked at. Above normal in the northeast, down to the southeast again, and near normal to maybe slightly below back here in the center portion of the country, mixed in Alaska and above in Hawaii. And that's it, folks, for the long range portion of the show. Now we're going to look at the space weather, and that sun is waking up. We don't have a lot to talk about for the tropics, so we're not going to talk about it because there's nothing to show you there. But the space weather is waking up, and we could see a little bit of activities we head on into the weekend. We'll look at that right now. And down the stretch, we come with the space weather and geological update to wrap up the show. The sun is waking up, as I said, and you can tell by this M-class solar flare right there on the X-ray chart that shot off a CME that fortunately was not directed toward the Earth, so we don't really have anything to worry about, but you can see it. It's kind of neat to show. This is the coronagraph. It blocks the sun, and it shows you things that are firing off from the sun. There it goes, the northwest quadrant, and not Earth directed, so that is good news. The sun, here the sun comes, it's turning around, and you can see this big coronal hole turning toward us. It's transequatorial too, so that means there's going to be potentially enhanced solar wind as we work on in toward the weekend, and maybe just beyond. We'll be on alert for potentially increased seismic activity and aurora excitement if we can get any enhanced plasma coming in. Nothing going on right now. The Earth is quiet. Not much going on the earthquake side of things or the volcanic side of things. And so that's your space weather update. We'll be watching for aurora viewing as we get on in toward the weekend. In the meantime, we'll wrap up here with today's weather IQ answer. And the question was, what is the first full moon in July called? Water moon, bow moon, supramoon, or the buck moon? And the answer is the buck moon. I told you the answer yesterday. It is named for the time when male deer typically grow new antlers. And there you have it. And we'll have more moon questions as we go on through the week. Another little fun fact that's interesting to note is that in 1861, July the 8th, Tennessee became the last state to secede from the Union and join the Confederacy. A little more than 5 years after that, on July the 24th, 1866, it rejoined the Union, making it the first Confederate state to be readmitted. So I guess that would make it a Lofi, last out, first in. And there you have it, folks. Now you know about your American history, which we all should continue to learn and remember so that we don't make the same mistakes again. And you know the weather. So hope it's been a good show for you. Thanks for tuning in. Share it with friends and family. If you know people that are interested in stuff like this, we try to cover a wide range of topics here. A lot of weather shows out there that cover, the kind of the main events. We'll do that too, but I want to give you a little bit more than that and hopefully teach you a few things along the way. Questions that you have, comments that you have about the show, please feel free to make those to me. I read all of those and dearly appreciate those. So thank you for joining me today, folks. And as always, this is Cold Rain reminding you, other stations run 24/7, but we got you covered right here, right now at Cold Rain's Weather World, 4814. Take care. Have a great day.